All right, so we should be live. Cool. Oh, man. Um, I guess I need to make a change. I announced that I was going to be going live on Twitch. There we go. All right, good morning. It's going to be almost impossible. Um, Free speech was executed on September 10th, 2025 in front of a live audience. Well, good job, Ultramensch, except that wasn't the elimination of free speech. Free speech is not yet eliminated. But it's nice to see the Charlie Kirk fanboys coming in to show how little they understand about all of this. Maybe we can fix some of it. I need to run down. It's EverQuest, not Lord of the Rings. I need to run downstairs real quick, and I will be right back. Didn't know you were gaming. Marvel Atheist. I used to run the #1 Counter-Strike team on the planet. I was the first EverQuest and a Druid server-wide to 70 and 75. I've been gaming since there were games. But I'll be right back. All right. All right, so here's what's going on. I'm sure you'll hear this repeated. I'm sure I will get it down to a succinct soundbite. Sunday, I did the Sunday show on the line. If you're not familiar, in addition to this channel, I also host. I don't actually do live streams on this channel much at all, except when I have something to say. Somebody suggested that I go live on YouTube today. Thanks so much for the super chat there. I appreciate that. Somebody suggested I go live on YouTube today because I was just going to go live on Twitch. And if I'm live on Twitch, there's maybe, I don't know, 20 or 30 people who are going to tune in because it's just boring. It's like Tuesday's my day off, and so I'll stream on Twitch. And I'll play, like right now I'm playing EverQuest. I used to play a lot of EverQuest. I quit 20 years ago, but I'm back now. And I built up some characters. Today, I'm not going to actually be playing, as in like doing any adventures or quests or missions or dungeons or anything else. I'm going to be doing just character maintenance on this particular character. It is a character with all 4 Intcaster personas. And I'm just going to be picking up the missing spells, figuring those characters out. They were basically just power leveled alts and everything else. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. But also Sunday's show, I had some sort of ischemic response that we're not completely sure what the cause was. And I went to the emergency room. And it's clear. If you watch Sunday's show, I haven't rewatched it. Most people just thought it was high. And I thought it was high, but I was definitely having an issue to the point where I couldn't remember what had happened 20 seconds before by the time I left the show. And so I left and I went and laid down. And then once the show was over, Arden took me to the emergency room. I was there, I don't know, like for about 18 hours or so, I think, give or take. And the initial scan, they did a CT scan of my brain, and it had CT scans work in slices, and one of the slices showed a dark spot, and they're like, we don't know what this is. It could be an error with the scan. It could be that we, didn't keep your head isolated. It could be a shadow. It could be a bleed, something. But the scan makes it look like there's a chunk of my brain missing, which I found especially funny. But they went and did an MRI, and guess what? There's no missing chunk in my brain, and it was a mistake on the first CT scan. And so the MRI is clear. Now, I have microvascular conditions, which is related to both my diabetes and my heart condition. And in addition to those conditions, I've had in the past micro strokes that don't produce, like you could just be walking around and have one and never know. And so we found that out as well. I posted the picture with a bit of a joke saying, hey, look, here's where the God module is supposed to be in my brain. I'll show you the picture. It's fun. Well, I didn't want to show you that version of the picture first, but here we go. So this was the picture that I posted because that was the CT scan. And that area over here in this lower right, it looks like somebody's just taken a hammer and dented my brain or removed part of my brain or whatever else. And as it turns out, it's all fine. The MRI shows everything's just fine. Whoops. Come back over here and we'll get to, hey, let's get to ground news. So anyway, I posted that and I figured, oh, okay, that's the best joke that I came up with was either that's where the God module is supposed to be in my brain and it's missing. So anyway, somebody decided to take that and knowing how much, or potentially knowing how much I hate the R slur, decided to say that's why you're retarded. And I knew something like that was going to happen. And all it does, it's not an MRI, that was the CT. The MRI is completely clear and fine. But it shows what's wrong with a number of people. It's going to be virtually impossible for me to keep up with chat. So let's just recognize that. I don't know if there's any moderators here. I'm gonna be playing. I'm gonna be talking. I'll respond to what I see. But I was going to just, Tuesday is my day to normally go live on Twitch. I stream a couple other days as well, but Arden was saying I should maybe go live on YouTube because I was really frustrated this morning and have been for ages. We all know that social media, or hopefully we all know, maybe we don't all know, since most people can't seem to figure out whether or not they need to make a post on Facebook to tell Facebook that it can't use their pictures. I mean, I see that post going round and round for years and years and years and years, and it never stops. And it's like, how do you idiots? Yes, oh, by the way, while I do say that I'm a humanist and would prefer kindness, I'm done playing nice on certain issues. If I think you're fucking stupid, I'm just going to say I think you're fucking stupid. Because to me, that's not about IQ or intelligence or any capacity of yours. You're stupid because you are remaining voluntarily ignorant. And I will, of course, try to prioritize super chats when I can see them and everything else. So Red Shrek said, glad you're doing better, Matt. How are you and Arden holding up in these dark times? That's what I'm talking about. Thank you so much for your kindness. That's very generous. When you're online and you're on social media, there are algorithms that feed things that you're interested in. This sounded like a really good idea. Don't give me all that other crap that I'm not interested in. Give me the stuff that actually interests me. YouTube's going to tailor your YouTube algorithm. By the way, how did you find this? Is this the stuff you would normally watch? Is it live streams? Is it, is it me? Is it what, or did it serve it up to you? But the people who most need to hear what I say probably aren't going to hear it. And that's an incredibly frustrating place to live, where if I make a post on social media, or if I make a post here on YouTube, or even if I go live on YouTube, most of the people who are going to hear it are people who already ostensibly agree with me and follow my content and would likely see this stuff somewhere else after the fact, etc. And then after that, there's a portion of people who will see this who are they're part of the dead internet. They are the bot accounts that exist primarily just to harass people. I suppose today is also a cognitive test, because if I'm able to string together cogent remarks and remain coherent throughout the day, it's going to be very difficult to suggest that I'm suffering from something. But so most of the people who hear what I say are going to be people who already follow. Then there's going to be some chunk of the bots. But the people who most need to hear what I say probably aren't. Have I given an opinion on the murder of Charlie Kirk? Thanks for showing you don't watch my content. I mean, he was shot last Wednesday. I literally went live last Wednesday on the line and did a 4-hour show that started with talking about that and then took calls like normal. I've also commented about it a number of times on social media. So that's actually really good, because anybody who's showing up here saying, are you going to have you given an opinion on the murder of Charlie Kirk? That means that YouTube is serving up my content to you as part of the algorithm, even though you clearly don't consume any of the actual work I do. So it's going to let you watch me when I'm gaming and bullshitting, but not when I'm saying all the important stuff. It's bizarre, because I am against violence. I have always, you don't have to be sorry, Jason, it's fine. You don't have to be sorry. This is what you're making the point. You're doing it perfectly. We get the content that we ask for, and we get the content that the algorithm decides we most wanted. We've got to break through that limitation. Will you ever debate Andrew again? I'm assuming you mean Andrew Wilson. And if Andrew Wilson wants to book a debate, he can ask. And the next time he does, he should ask for the debate he wants rather than agreeing to debate one topic and then showing up and trying to debate a separate topic. But I don't think it's likely that we'll debate because much like Mehdi Hassan, I don't debate fascists. Anyway, we've got these algorithms that are feeding stuff, and it's very difficult to sort through that. It is difficult to figure out, hey, am I being fed this because somebody else wants me to see it or because I want to see it? And am I getting the whole story? And the truth is, the whole story is largely available. Like, you have access to more information than ever in the history of the world. But we are incredibly lazy and incredibly stupid and often dispassionate. And it may not be entirely our fault because this is the way you've been trained to respond to things. It's not, oh, I was just a lazy person who didn't care about the world. You've been trained to become less compassionate, less concerned, less trusting of science and scientific information. You have been, it is too much. It is a choice blindness where there's so many options you have no way of knowing what the truth is, so you've given up. And like, I'm not sponsored by them at all. Although, Ground News, if you want to sponsor me, I keep talking you guys up. But one of the things is that we know that these biases exist. We know that once you start heading down, kind of one side leaning, that you're going to get more and more of that. But the information is still out there. And what struck me is I got out of the hospital. I came back, I rested a little bit last night, and then I started hearing information that I had missed just in the 18 hours or so that I was in the hospital. And I saw a great meme, which I will paraphrase. I did not come up with this, but the FBI is being run with two podcasters who are investigating the death of a third podcaster, and the Vice President of the United States cosplays as a fourth podcaster to go on the third podcaster's podcast after somebody killed him for reasons we're not completely clear about yet. And yet what's happened is, before there was even a suspect in custody, the narrative was, this is left violence, the Dems own this is civil war, this was the narrative before there was anybody in custody. Then they get a dude in custody, and the narrative becomes, hang on a second, this is I'm going to use words that absolutely terrify the bots. So great. This is a cishet white dude who's from a Mormon family whose dad is a sheriff and a preacher. Turns out a lot of that wasn't true. His dad wasn't a sheriff and a preacher. And then it's like, oh, well, he's got a trans partner and had been recently radicalized by the left. And so it's the 1% that Bernie would talk about. The 1% who own all the stuff. They have managed to convince you that another 1%, a marginalized minority, are the big victim. And once they get you to eliminate the less than 1% of the population that are trans, they'll just go to the next lowest 1% and keep doing it. Because as long as they can keep you distracted and keep you going after marginalized communities, you won't go after them. And yes, there's violent rhetoric. Things like eat the rich. But eat the rich is metaphoric. We're not really looking to fill our stomachs. Whereas civil war and announcements of violence and all that, those aren't the same. And so the vice president literally went on a podcast. And if you listen to his language, it's clever. Because it says there are more lunatics on the left. Now, lunatic is not a technical term at all. And so a lunatic is whatever you happen to find crazy. It's not a DSM thing. It's not a diagnostic thing. It is not a fact thing. It is, I look at the other side and I think they're nuts. And we all do that. So, and he literally said this problem is not a both sides problem. Even if it is a both sides problem, the left has it way more. And this is in direct opposition to the actual facts. When you go look at studies on violence and politically motivated violence, it shows that the right and the extreme right, the far right, the ideological right are far more prevalent in that arena than the left are. And that self-identified Christian nationalists are far more in that violent action category than others. Now, this is the whole both sides, everybody's guilty, both sides are the same, both sides lie, both sides lie. And you know what? They're right. Both sides lie. It's just true. Both sides lie. Does that mean both sides lie just as often and about the same things and to the same extent? I mean, I'm a huge proponent of the truth, so much so that the lack of truth in the world is sending me to therapy to deal with the fact that there's no consequences and that the truth doesn't seem to matter as much anymore. And yet, the right would like you to believe, yes, fireman versus atheists, we are animals. Do you think we're vegetables or minerals or something? I mean, right here, I'm having a discussion about the lies related to violence, and fireman versus atheist, probably a bot, at least at a minimum a troll, clearly not an honest interlocutor, comes in to say, atheists say we're animals, right? No, not just atheists. It's not atheists that say we're animals. The science says we're animals. The fact is we are animals. What you're trying to imply there is that atheists say we are mere animals because you've added another category distinguishing the animal that you are from the animal that you don't want to be associated with. You've invented something. And to the extent that there are differences between us and various other animals, we are more intelligent and more emotive than most of the other or all of the other animals that we can interact with. But we're also slower than some and less inventive than some, perhaps. It's really weird. Why do you call everything a bot? How funny, Ryan. I don't call everything a bot. I'm not a bot. The people I work with are bots. I don't think some of the people that I've interacted with are bot. But why do you call everything a bot? It is hilarious watching the distractions come in because you guys are terrified of facing reality. And the reality is the machismo folks on the right who sat around calling everybody names and being bullies and continuing to marginalize communities are now trying to pretend that it's the left that are the purveyors of gun violence. Really? So growing up, it was the left that was buying Soldier of Fortune magazine, and it's the left that are pro-military. It's the left that are turning the Department of Defense not into the Department of Peace, but the Department of War. It's the left, huh? The left is doing this? It's amazing to me. I made a post this morning, just before going live, to say it was going live, and so that's probably why some of you are here, and huge thank you for that. But here's the thing. The vice president is blatantly lying as fascists target free speech. As the DOJ is saying that they're getting ready to crack down on left hate speech. Meanwhile, and I'm putting all of this in quotes, so I'm reading this. I'm sure somebody will take it out. But what I wrote was, They're trying to pretend that the hippie, and these are the words that they would use to describe this, hippie, tree-hugging, sissy, queer, vegan, dyed hair, pansy, soy latte drinking, fragile snowflake, soy boy, participation trophy having, anti-gun rights, pro-science, pro-healthcare, pro-education left are the violent ones. And they're so terrified of this tiny percent of people that they've done nothing but shit on and mock. My position has been consistently opposition to violence. What happened to Charlie Kirk was a vile individual who was not a debater, not an impressive debater at all. And what you guys don't know is that those formats, the let me sit down up here, it is propaganda. It is cosplaying as a debater. It is the easiest of easy modes. Now, don't get me wrong, Mehdi Hassan is really good, and he did good in his 20 Jubilee. And Jordan Peterson showed absolutely how deranged and irrational he is in his Jubilee thing by getting clowned on by people. But generally speaking, someone who's in a position who has some understandings of the subjects and has done this over and over again and is a good rhetorician can sit up in front of an audience and take on all comers. It would be trivially easy for me to do that. Oh, wait, I'm doing it here. The only difference is you guys don't get a microphone. And you know why? In part because the people who are coming in here and saying stuff, that's not what the people objecting to Charlie are saying. It's bizarre to me that people don't actually see this. I'm sorry, Fireman versus Atheist. You don't get to talk to other people here. You only get to talk to me. You don't get to. Matter of fact, can a mod just go ahead and remove Fireman versus Atheist? I'm going to take away Fireman versus Atheist's free speech. If not, it's fine. You guys will get it. Would you debate with Charlie Kirk? Charlie Kirk wouldn't debate me. He's not a debater. He's dead now too, but he wasn't a debater. That's the thing is you guys don't know how easy that actually is. Take a look at what was happening right before he got shot. An honest questioner asking specific questions, asked him if he knew how many trans shooters there'd been. And what was Charlie's answer? Too many. Okay, I'm sorry to help the clueless here, but that's not an answer. It's not an honest attempt to even understand the question or the subject being addressed. It was the Hello Cleveland of responses. That's what it was. I think I may have lost chat. Let me head over here and make sure that I'm still properly live. But it was a Hello Cleveland. It was an applause line, nothing more. This was him basically saying, I've been asked a question and I've heard this over and over again. And I've already dealt with this question over and over again. And I now know the lines to say. To be able to ignore and dismiss the point that this individual is trying to make. It was not an honest response. When somebody says, how many of these happened? And you say too many and put your mic down, that's an applause line. It was Hello Cleveland. The very next question was, do you know how many mass shootings there were? What was his response? Does that include or not include gang violence? Because instead of being an honest interlocutor, wanting to have an open discussion on the subject, Charlie Kirk was a propagandist. Charlie Kirk went with the applause line and the dog whistle. The watch me school this lefty on violence because they don't take into account black on black crime or whatever else they wanted to do. Wow, it's so funny how many of you in chat are telling on yourself right now. It's great. Why are you even talking about him still? Because I spent the weekend in the hospital and I came out to the vice president lying about the violence and the Department of Justice threatening to basically end free speech by labeling potentially people like me, they're not very clear who they're talking about, as left-wing radicalist hate speech proppers or whatever. So free speech is dying because basically Trump's administration is deciding that they're going to take hate crime legislation, and you watch, it's going to be about anti-Christian sentiment. That's what it is. This is part of the Project 2025 playbook. This is the pot calling the kettle black. Nice. Thank you, Johnny B. Good. I literally just said that I'm here doing that as a way of demonstrating that. Whereas when I do debates, those debates, I'm not talking about the call-in shows. Those aren't debates. But when I run around doing debates, it's because I'm being paid to debate against another person who's supposedly informed and a representative in a format where the goal is supposed to be to get to a good understanding of the various positions and hopefully move people closer to the truth. But cool. In any case, they are lionizing a vile individual, and I vehemently disagreed with Charlie Kirk on almost everything. Once upon a time, we would have agreed because he started off as a secularist who supported church-state separation back in 2018 or so. Matt speaking today sounds like Joe Biden trying to form a sentence, "I hope you're okay." Aw, thanks, Ryan. What about me sounds like Joe Biden trying to form a sentence? I'm pretty sure that the record here will show exactly how cogent and coherent I am, and able to not only school you, but school everybody. Woman, person, man, camera, TV. Ooh, I got one of those tests the other day. Mine was apple tie, pen, house, car. But anyway, those of you who have fallen into a trap, whether it's a trap down on the far right or a trap down on the far left, because those both exist. Part of the reason you might think I'm not speaking fine is because I don't have my upper denture in. So I sound a little more slow. I have my lower denture in, but I don't have my upper denture in because it hurts some. So I left it out. So you're going to hear more than normal. But if you move past the style and get to the actual substance, you'll see that what I'm saying is not remotely like what you're suggesting. In any case, while Charlie and I definitely agreed, and we never met, we never had a conversation, I did interact with people who knew him, and there were several people that tried to arrange something between us. But the thing is, I'm the guy that didn't even monetize his YouTube channel until December of last year when I had almost 200,000 subscribers. And are you not? Oh, look at the spam. Are you not that guy that was scared of free speech and Andrew Wilson wished you and your boyfriend well? You ran off like a coward. Over and over spamming. It's hilarious. I'm not afraid of free speech. Who stays or doesn't stay in a debate is irrelevant to free speech. Free speech is what the government can do about silencing you. Has nothing to do with whether or not Andrew Wilson is a lying fascist who I walked away from as a matter of integrity. But thanks for showing who you are. I am going to ban you, though. I am absolutely going to ban you for being hateful. So, welcome. There you go. It's amazing. This is what I'm talking about. You know what I've never done in my life? I've never punched anybody in my entire life. You know what I've never done in my entire life? I've never gone in to somebody else's channel and spammed them under my name or anonymously to basically suggest they're queer or a liar. I'm the guy who's been here on the internet with his real face and his real name from the beginning, telling you what I think and making arguments and teaching logical principles, teaching secular humanism, teaching skepticism. I'm the guy who has consistently denounced violence to the point where I lost friends. Good friends who are good people. When I told them it was wrong, in my view, both and strategically stupid, to advocate for punching people like Richard Spencer. When Richard Spencer, the famous Nazi, got punched, yes, I know. I back then I would say he wasn't a Nazi because we were nitpicking about the actual definitions of Nazi, but now it's become second nature. I had friends that were like, yes, we should be going around punching Nazis. And I'm like, no, we shouldn't. And by the way, I'm still in that same position. Last Wednesday, when Charlie Kirk was shot, I went on the air. I said zero sympathy, and I pointed out that I had zero sympathy for him, and what difference would it make because he ended up dying anyway. But nobody deserves that. That is not the path. That's also not justice, and it wasn't strategically smart. My preference with regard to Charlie Kirk is that he would have stopped grifting, seen the error of his ways, and spent the rest of his life making up for the harm that he had done. And when I said zero sympathy, people were like, how can you have no sympathy? How can you have no sympathy? I have lots of sympathy for lots of other people. Don't you have sympathy for his kids? Oh, I absolutely do. Not only am I saddened by the fact that they're now going to be even more in the spotlight and probably more sheltered, but I had sympathy for his kids beforehand when he said, as a father, that if his 10-year-old daughter became pregnant due to a sexual assault, he would force her to carry the child to term. I had sympathy for his kids there. I had more sympathy for his kids and everybody else that he interacted with than Charlie Kirk ever did about anybody. I'm not commenting on destiny. He can battle his court battles and show that he's not the terrible person some of us think he is. But debates, a proper debate, is not how we resolve things like science. In science, you do the studies and you present your paperwork and you get peer review, and the goal is to try desperately to show where somebody is wrong. And all science is trying to do is essentially attempt to debunk and then fail to debunk something. And science doesn't make proclamations of truth. Science comes up with the best current models and descriptions that best fit the evidence. And so when we say that something is scientific, we don't mean true in an absolute sense, because science doesn't get to that, and I don't think anything can get to absolute certainty. But it is the result of the best methods, and it is open to revision upon new information. Science isn't done by debate. It's the areas of opinion or the things pretending to be science that are not, where debate is a viable platform. I don't need to debate someone on whether or not everyone should have equal access to the law, irrespective of their race or gender or anything like that. That is a useless debate. The purpose of a debate like that is a performance to expose how absolutely awful somebody's view is. Because I would like a better world. And I think most of you, perhaps almost all of you, would like a better world. So now the next question is, where do we disagree on what a better world is? I love all the transphobes just showing up out of nowhere. At no point has anything here been about this other than the right trying to pretend like a tiny majority of the population is a dangerous threat. the right trying to pretend that being trans is a mental illness, and that their solution to mental illness isn't treatment, but extermination and vilification. It's just wild. So yeah, science doesn't make proclamations about truth, and that's not how debates are done, and that's not what debates are. Debates are a structure for competing ideas, ideally ones where there is perhaps some nuance. I would agree, Johnny B. Good, that peer review is the equivalent of debate in there, but peer review is not debate. But similar processes of evaluation. On that, it would be, peer review would be metaphoric of debate. So debate exists where there should be, where there's significant disagreement. And no clear, here's the fact. So like, I'm not even going to come up with a good example there because there's so much going on. But yeah, when I got out of the hospital and I started seeing what was happening just in the 18 hours that I was kind of out of it, it was very frustrating. And I didn't know Kirk well. We never met. But using his own words counter what the right is doing. He was an advocate of free speech. He was an advocate for hate speech. I, by the way, am opposed and have consistently been opposed in general to hate speech legislation and hate crime legislation because we are already allowed, we already know this action is illegal, and judges are already allowed to consider motivations and the impact on society, that I don't think we need to codify hate speech. I don't know that there's any advantage to doing that. And so I'm sitting here as the person who's opposing violence and opposing hate speech and hate crime laws, while the current administration and the right are not only saying, hey, we want to start labeling leftist groups as terrorist organizations, start limiting and their free speech, start criminalizing their free speech, because they don't care about precedent. They don't care about the courts. They ignore the courts whenever they feel like it. This is the first time I've seen you gaming. Well, you haven't seen me doing anything yet except for sitting here because I guess I'm talking. But the truth is out there, I guess, to do the X-Files comparison. Kirk's already old news. The media's moved on. Well, I haven't completely moved on yet. I had 18 hours in the hospital or so, you'll have to just allow me to engage a little bit. I'd really love to hear your thoughts on my super chat question. I'm sorry, I got so distracted I didn't even see super chats. Let me see if I can scroll back up and get to it. I don't want to be unappreciative, but is nonviolence actually a luxury point of view often espoused by those with low likelihood of oppression? Yes. That's a great question. That's a funny super chat, by the way, Raven. So this is something I was hoping to get to. Thank you, the Toniest. I mentioned on the show last Wednesday that I hate both what the lying fascists are doing and what they are gradually turning me into. Because while I don't advocate for violence, it's getting harder and harder to not be at least mildly sympathetic to the perpetrators of violence. And I hate what that's made me. I also hate the fact that I'm not a pacifist, even though I've never punched anybody, and I don't, I recognize that defense of self, defense of others, defense of, country, etc. These are things that are real. And that at some point, violence absolutely must be justified. Otherwise, you are essentially committing violence against yourself. You're ending your own rights and freedoms and perhaps life. I don't know and wouldn't pretend to know at what point violence becomes justified. And clearly it becomes justified for different people in different places. But that's their personal assessment. And then the question becomes, when are they actually right? And it's kind of like we've dealt with this question from a legal perspective in another arena, which is, if I sat here and I wrote a story about committing the perfect crime, is that enough to convict me of plotting to commit a crime? How far down the road from idea to execution does somebody need to get? Did you play EverQuest? I'm literally playing it right now. I took 20 years away. I'm back after 20 years, and I'm going to do some character maintenance stuff a little later, but I'm talking now. How far down the line towards a crime does somebody need to get before we have warrant to use physical force to stop them? I don't think there's any clear answer to that. I think it is entirely situational. And I think that there are reasonable disagreements on where the line is drawn. But I think it's pretty easy to identify the extremes where it's not warranted. So that's as close to an answer to your question about when is it warranted as I can. Because I think war is coming. I think potentially civil war is coming, although let's be honest, I don't think anybody knows what civil war looks like in 2025, 26, 27, 20, whatever it is. I don't think any of us have a clue. And a good chunk of United States citizens have grown up so privileged, so rich, and so divorced from war that they can't even grasp or empathize what's going on in Ukraine or Gaza or any place else. There's too much information. There's too much going on in the world to keep up with, and there's too many people being hurt to exercise the sort of empathy that we should be empathizing. And despite the fact that I have always advocated against violence, and despite the fact that I went on to say the thing that I'm most mad about is what this world is trying to get me to accept, and yet I refuse to accept, neither Charlie Kirk nor anybody else deserved this, no matter how vile. And Charlie's own take on it was essentially that free speech. But let's not lionize the guy and act like he was just a debater willing to take his ideas to the public forum. That's you guys wishing you were NBA players. You stepped into a pickup game and you think that you're an NBA player. As the rough equivalent of a debate NBA player in this little realm here, let me tell you, you're not, and Charlie wasn't. It is really easy. Matt, this is literally not the time to be playing games. Well, I don't think I asked you, Ultraminch. Don't you see what's right in front of you? I've got the game open, but I'm actually having the conversation here. But I didn't ask you when is the time to be playing games. And now you're saying the disagreement is over. We've clearly passed that point. See, this is what I'm saying, Ultramensch. You and some others have decided that you've crossed a threshold. I've crossed a number of thresholds. And I'm still not ready to advocate for violence. Now, you might be. And I, unlike some people, I would be open to someone making the case for something. But I'm playing a game because, unlike most of the rest of the lazy world, I've been entrenched in these discussions for decades. It's not coming, make no mistake. Wait, where did that go? Did your... It seemed like there was a post from Ultramensch that got deleted. Did they get banned? Did somebody? Oh, message retracted. Well, let's see that message. Let's just play the damn game. How about I do what I want? I mean, let's be completely clear here. Despite the constant accusations from somebody that I'm a coward who wouldn't say it to your face, I'm the guy who absolutely would say it to your face. And despite the number of people who are telling me how I should live my life, whatever, I'm going to do exactly what the fuck I want to do when I want to do it. So all of you suggesting, oh, let's just play the game. No, I'll do what I want when I want. That's what freedom is. I'll say what I want when I want. That's what freedom is. You guys trying to silence me or troll me, you'll never matter. I'm sorry for whatever happened to you that led you to the point where your clear moral and intellectual inferiority have put you in a position where all you can do is lash out. Some of us don't feel that. Some of us aren't merely needing to lash out all the time. Some of us feel the need to keep engaging and keep trying, no matter how many trolls there are, no matter how many bots there are. And it's absurd for you guys to pretend like that's not happening. When I go look at the comments, the hateful comments on the YouTube thing, we find it's account after account with no public posts since 2023, 2020, 2019. All of these are dead Facebook accounts co-opted by bot farms to spread propaganda to people, to just be hateful. How else would somebody who's not on my friend list, who's made no public posts since 2023, find my post about Charlie Kirk and be the first commenter? You guys can't be that stupid to not see this. Who said Charlie advocated against violence? Did I say that? If I said Charlie advocated against violence, that would be selective understanding. Charlie advocated against limitations on speech. And while I'm sure you can find clips of him saying, that's fine, Matt, you know I don't need your permission. You need my permission to keep speaking in my channel, right? As a matter of fact, I'd like for you to say, yes, I need your permission to continue speaking in my channel. And if you don't say that next, I'll prove you wrong. How's that? Oh, I'm sorry. Your next statement wasn't that you need my permission. You said a threshold has obviously been crossed. I realize there's a delay, so I'm giving you a chance, Ultramensch, to acknowledge, yes, Matt, I need your permission to speak in your channel. And now you've said you don't advocate for this violence, but I'm not denying what's occurring. I'm not denying what's occurring either. But you seem to be under the impression that you don't have to say what I asked you to say. So you're either going to, Matt, your opinion is too important to many, to too many. It carries more weight than you think. Ultramensch, this is your last chance. If the next comment from you is not, I need your permission to speak in your channel, I will prove that you don't understand this. Do, 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 do. Hey, maybe some background music. Everybody get ready to say goodbye to Ultramensch, because I think that's going to be a bridge too far for them to acknowledge. Look, Ultramensch doesn't seem to be saying anything. It was reported misspelling due to talk to text. Well, I would tell you to say goodbye, Ultramensch, but we don't need you to say goodbye. Goodbye. And you know what? I'm gonna take away the free speech rights of firemen versus atheists as well. Yeah, you guys aren't fooling me. Boom. There we go. Now let's get caught up. Oh no, Matt silenced a speech he doesn't agree with. No, that's not true. Matt spent 20 years taking live calls under his own real name, telling people exactly where I'm going to be, engaging in debates and public forums and everything else. Not silencing speech because I disagree with it. If I wasn't engaging with speech I disagreed with, I would have no fucking job. Do I agree with cash reparations for black descendants of slaves in America? I have no idea. I think reparations of some kind may be justified. I don't know what the proper implementation of that is, because I don't know I don't understand the full issue and what cash would be. But here's a question for you. What the fuck does that have to do with what we're talking about? Does it say at the top of my stream, come in with your pet issue that isn't related to the one I'm talking about? But my dear friend, what happened? I was very surprised by some of your positions today for the wait a minute. I was very surprised by, are we dear friends there, Joel? I don't know. By some of your positions today for the Charlie case. The subject is political violence, which is not the same as speaking of violence. That doesn't, I don't know what that post means. I hope we all still agree that political violence is unacceptable. Are you stupid, Joel? I'm the guy that's been here denouncing all violence, including violence for mere speech. And you're suggesting that I'm not opposed to political violence? I think Joel's pretty stupid. Have I ever played Project 1999 EQ? No. I don't want to go back and suffer that much. I'm playing kind of easy mode on a TLP because I haven't played in 20 years and I'm not that interested in going back for the punishment of camping months to get the Epic 1.0. That doesn't appeal to me. I did that the first time. I don't want to do that here. Matt, please, you're gay. Admit it. Smart but gay. Well, hello, Anonymous. I'm sorry, but as somebody who has exclusively dated women and has exclusively had sex with women, I don't know that gay actually fits with me. However, at a minimum, if your delusional model of sex and sexuality was accurate, it'd be more accurate to describe me as bi or pan. And I don't know whether or not I qualify as bi or pan. I've never dated a dude. I don't tend to get romantically attached or sexually aroused by dudes. But yes, you're correct. My partner currently is trans. And while you would like to say that makes me gay, all that does is show your homophobia. Because first of all, if I were gay, I would say I'm gay. I have zero, to me, being gay isn't a pejorative, and neither is being bi or pan. None of these things are pejoratives. It's only the anonymous trolls in here. I'm talking about trans women. I know who you're talking. Did you think I didn't know who you're talking about, Anonymous, you little coward? Hey, everybody, it's Anonymous's first rodeo. You're gay, dude, admit it. No, I might be bi, I might be pan. I don't know. I don't care what the category is, because unlike you, I'm not a homophobe. I'm not someone who views that as a pejorative. I don't say that I'm gay, bi, or pan. I know I'm not gay because I've had plenty of sex with plenty of cis women, maybe even your mom. So at a minimum, not gay. But I don't care. I don't use the words like that because There are people who are gay and bi and pan who have been marginalized and bullied by people like you who are terrified of the harsh realities about human sexuality and terrified of your own thoughts and the fact that you might get turned on by somebody whose chromosomes or genitalia don't match what you think your preference is. And, oh my goodness, let me clutch my pearls. And so you toss it out like it's a pejorative. You're like, you're gay, admit it, you're gay. There's no such thing as cis or trans. Well, you are factually wrong. You are factually wrong. Sorry. Just men and women. Okay, cool. If I've had sex with men and women, does that mean I'm gay? Anonymous?
I don't know, but I found these results on search.
Google tried to answer for you, which is probably a better answer than Anonymous could possibly give. I don't use the labels like that because I've always been, in kind of the same sort of category. But I have friends who are gay and friends who are queer. Queer is a better thing. Am I queer? Yeah. Okay. I don't like to use the label because people have had their ass kicked for using it and they earned the right to use it. But I'd say under modern usages, certainly queer in some sense. I don't even know, but I don't care because you don't have a choice in who you fall in love with or who you like. And I find it really strange that there are people out there who are so obsessed with me and what sex I am or am not having. Okay, if it makes me bi, Anonymous, why did you say I was gay? Are you saying now you were wrong? Can you admit you were wrong? But the weird thing is that the me that lives in people's heads is like really wild. Okay, Anonymous, we all know that you're just trolling. I asked if you could admit you were wrong. Are you going to admit you're wrong, or am I just going to ban you? As a matter of fact, I'm just going to ban you because you've demonstrated that you're not an honest interlocutor. You aren't here for any sort of conversation. You aren't here to consider even the remotest possibility that you're a hateful bigot who's monumentally wrong. Instead, you are here to try to spam and rile me up. You can't. You know why? Because there is zero chance that I'm going to go to your channel and harass you ever. So I win. You're going to get ratioed in this chat. You're going to get ratioed in whatever chat lives behind. I don't know who you are, Anonymous. You've accomplished nothing except showing that you're a troll and a bigot. That you would rather throw around slurs at people and use words as slurs that shouldn't be slurs. I remember I was debating, that's all right. If somebody shows up on one of their multiple accounts, we can, boom. Here's the thing. I remember one of the debates I did. I'm pretty sure this was in the debate with Cy Tenberg and Kate. I believe he said something to me like, if I were to say your wife's a whore, you would probably want to punch me in the face or something like that. Does anybody remember what I'm talking about? Just to make sure I'm not delusional. But I remember Cy saying something like that to me. And I pointed out, I may not have done it as clearly or as eloquently as I am right now. I pointed out that no, in fact, I wouldn't. Because first of all, if my wife were a whore and you said so, that would mean you're telling the truth. And I can't have an issue with someone that's telling the truth. And if my wife's not a whore, then that means you're either delusional or a liar. And while I can have issue with you over that, I don't want to commit violence against you. I'd like to correct you or expose you as the fool that you are. Because I also am someone who does not consider the word whore to be a pejorative. You're tossing a word around as if it should be disgraceful to someone who does not see the word as disgraceful. It's like the people who use cocksucker as a pejorative. Overwhelmingly, I bet the guys who use cocksucker as a pejorative really like getting their cock sucked. All right, is there an adult tag on this? I guess there ought to be. There ought to be on everything I do. But the point is, if you're going to throw around a pejorative, you ought to perhaps be smart enough to not use one that you use incorrectly or that you enjoy. I think people who enjoy and provide oral sex are to be lauded. But it comes from a homophobic base where you find there's something wrong with same-sex attraction or same-gender interaction or whatever. And so you throw it out as if you've accomplished something. Oh, did you see what I did? I called that dude gay. I called that dude gay. Okay. When I'm standing next to my friends who are in fact gay, would you call them gay? Yeah. Do you think, I mean, you might not. It might be that the only people you're willing to call gay are the ones you think might object to it. Because I'm pretty, it's wild. I almost wish I could reach out. I have, I don't want to say a friend. DJ Grothy is a friendly acquaintance of mine. We've known each other for years. He used to do the Point of Inquiry podcast. He was the president of the James Randi Educational Foundation. He posts a lot of good data-driven skepticism stuff on social media, and I share a lot of it, and we interact. I don't know what here we go. Am I somewhere on the spectrum? Probably. I don't know what he considers friends. And I don't like to claim someone as a friend if it's not clear to both of us that we're friends. But we're at least friendly acquaintances. DJ is gay. I'd love to call him and maybe get him on the show sometime, but I'm pretty sure if you called him gay, he'd be like, and? DJ, you're so gay. Yeah? It's only in the mind of the bigots that that's an insult at all. There's nothing there. It's only the people who would be upset to be called gay who think other people should be upset to be called gay. You call me gay all you want. Throw whatever slur. It doesn't matter. I have loads of gay friends. I have bi friends, I have pan friends, I have queer friends, I have cis friends, I have trans friends. I have friends who are sex workers. I have friends who are sex workers that do like OnlyFans content. I have friends that do porn content. I have friends who are actually paid prostitute whores. I've never paid. I'm not a client. We were friends. I don't view it as a pejorative. Sex work is real work. I'm sorry that your personal baggage got in the way of you understanding of that. Somehow or another, we went from free speech being under attack to all the transphobes show up. This is the point. First of all, release the entire Epstein files. Second of all, end the genocides. Third of all, denounce, vote against, and end the fascists that are taking over this country. Because the 1% that control the money are trying to get you to hate the 1% that are trans. That's what this is. You're seeing it live in my chat. I talked about free speech. I talked about Charlie Kirk. I talked about how violence isn't warranted, and I get super chats saying, "Oh, but shouldn't you be denouncing political violence?" And "Oh, but it's already here." It is a delusional cesspool. And then of course it gets immediately moved and reassociated to trans folks. You're gay, homie. Trans this, trans that. Be interesting to find out at what point such a marginalized community has been the focus of a. See, you gave me a 6 out of 10 for my Bernie, and somebody gave it higher earlier. So let's see. God has been coming for 1,000 years. Oh, we must get lost. God's coming. God's coming. Okay. I see some of you are joking. Is Matt okay? Been ranting now for about 20 minutes all over the place. That's weird, Northern Labs, because I'm responding to people's chats and super chats, and I'm responding to the trolls who came in and saying stuff, and you seem to think that I'm ranting and all over the place. Let's put up a poll. Start a poll. There we go. There we go. Is Matt ranting and raving all over the place? For those of you who are here, the purpose of the question is, am I ranting and raving in a disjointed, confused, and coherent thing? Or is it more the case that I'm actively responding to super chats and questions, and the topics are changing all over the place, going from Charlie Kirk down to trans folks because of the bigots and the hate mongers that come in. So there we go. I'll let you guys sort it out. Whatever. Let me check through a few more of these super chats, because I don't want to be disrespectful to people who, you know. Bum, bum, bum. Ooh, although that's not. Okay. Whoops. The super chats are rolling off in a way that I can't do it. I'll keep following and listening as you're the best atheist debater, but sadly on the question of where the violence comes from in the West, it seems the epistemology used to reach an opinion is contradicting with your t-shirt. Well, Joel, I want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. Joel, do you think the violence is coming more from the left or more from the right? You don't have to super chat, just tag me. The shirt says, I want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. I'm genuinely interested, Joel, because I don't know that you're making sense. And maybe it's me, because evidently I have a problem with my brain and it's too good for you guys. I mean, you guys specifically, not everybody in chat. How can Matt read and speak different topics at the same time? Well, there is a slight delay, but also I'm pretty good at multitasking. So we're probably not going to get anything done in game today because I wasn't expecting kind of this sort of turnout. So what we'll do, because let's just be honest, I'm not going to accomplish what I thought I was going to accomplish in the game. And instead of that, let me see if I can go a little bit more big screen. And we'll just keep going with the questions and you guys can figure out if I'm delusional or what. In France, yes, the violence come from the far left. Well, I'm not in France, nor do I keep up with France. I don't know why your response. I'm talking about things here in the United States, Joel. And to tell me that they're a certain way in France is like me saying, I'm hungry and you saying you're not. And so this is why I think you are especially stupid. In each one of your super chats, that has kind of been the theme. You seem to be confused about political violence and stuff. And when I say stupid, I don't mean you're unintelligent, and I don't mean you're merely uninformed or misinformed. I mean, you have fallen down a hole where you are currently incapable of interacting on topic with the relevant data and facts instead of presenting irrelevant stuff. How long have you played games? I played games since Space Invaders, and was a semi-professional gamer before there was professional gamers. I was at QuakeCon 97, competing along with John Romero and Cornelia and bunches of others. I was not top tier then, but eventually I went on to the Half-Life Deathmatch, and then around the #1 Counter-Strike team in the world for a number of years. We were instrumental in forming many of the leagues and, Rumble in the Desert and all those that led to the CPL and that stuff. And then I retired from first-person shooters and shifted over to MMOs like EverQuest, which I'm not going to claim I was especially good at, but I was the first Druid server-wide to level 70 and 75. But that's merely about putting time in. On my Twitch stream, you can get a list of games that I've played. I would be there today. And there are like some of my all-time favorite games. Like I love Ori and the Will-O-Wisp and Ori and the Blind Forest, even though I'm not a huge Metroidvania type fan. I played a lot of Binding of Isaac. And it's like there are some games that are like punishingly hard that I just won't bother playing, like the Souls games and things like that. But thinky games and puzzle games and chess and stuff like that, all of those I'll do. I said in the West in chat earlier, so yes, my friend. So first of all, Joel, I'm not your friend. I have to mention that because we were talking about whether or not DJ and I are friends. But whether or not you said the West in chat, you do realize there's, 500 plus people here right now. And I was responding only to your super chats because you didn't tag me and I didn't see what you were saying. But it still seems especially stupid because whether you said in the West or not, you're suggesting that I'm not opposed to political violence when I absolutely am, and opposed to more violence than mere political violence. Have said so repeatedly, done entire shows about it, started this show about it, and then you pretended that I wasn't. You don't seem to be attached to the conversation, and I apologize for suggesting you were stupid. It may be that there's a language barrier there, or it may be that you're just not paying attention or didn't have enough information. But thank you for the super chats. I am opposed to violence almost entirely, but I think there are times when violence is justified in defense of self and others. Ever played Age of Empires 2? But I think I played one of the early Age of Empires or precursors. I liked Elder Scrolls and some of those, but the open world, and they get to be too big, where for somebody like me who used to be a completionist, and I can't be a completionist in games anymore. I don't have the time to be a completionist in games. In the super chat, I said in the West. Does in the West violence come more from the West or no? See, you can't even put together a simple thing like that without the mistake. You had to retract it. In the United States, I have data. Violence, including what some people label political violence, which I find to be a really silly caveat, is overwhelmingly from the right. Period. End of story. Is the first thing I think of is that you're wrong. Violence is natural in politics. Have I ever played Minecraft? Yeah, I've got my forever password for Minecraft because I got in early, but I haven't played it in years and years and years. If Jordan Peterson ever invited you to take ayahuasca with him, would you? Probably not. Jordan Peterson isn't worth paying any attention to anymore. They didn't have to put him in front of 20 atheists to prove that. They only had to put him in front of this one, and we settled that. But I don't have any interest in taking ayahuasca right now. And if I did, I definitely wouldn't want to take it with Jordan. Genuine question, can speech be violence? No. But speech can have an impact similar to violence. I have long been opposed to the Supreme Court of the United States' ruling on fighting words. The very notion that there are some things one could say that they are so offensive that they would naturally allow for violence. Instead, I think there are some things that could be said that are so offensive that one can understand how the normal person would likely react with violence. But that doesn't mean that the violence is justified. And so I don't put them on the same footing. So I'm opposed to the fighting words doctrine. I think instead, it might be better to call it an invitation to fighting words doctrine, whereas the words were uttered, and it would be natural that somebody might have a violent reaction to it, and that could be an invitation to settle this via fisticuffs or dueling or something like that. Not that we should do that. I'm just saying that would be the retread in the direction I'd be moving. Is the death sentencing of the Nuremberg trials a form of political violence? Is the thing I find I don't want to oppose. No. That was punishment for actions and the directions of actions. If I am in a position of power where I have authority over someone, at the threat of violence, etc., where I am the military commander or the person in charge, or where I've gotten somebody to do something under the threat of their own life, I don't have to physically put a gun to their head. I can make a reasonable, I can make the sort of threat where it is reasonable for them to think there's a gun to their head. And so that's what it is. This isn't, I have an opinion that's different from yours. Well, boom, now we're justified. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Ever play Stellaris? No. Or other 4X type games? I have not. I play a lot of chess, and I play a lot of chess badly, mainly because I will sometimes play when I'm high or when I'm on the toilet or when I'm in the middle of a show, when a call is especially boring. Would you ever considering rocking out with your ukulele again? I can't. My diabetic neuropathy is such that I can't play my guitars or my ukulele as well as I used to, and so I generally don't enjoy it. Strongest arguments for abortion? Do you mean for abortion or for a right to abortion? Because abortion is the termination of an unwanted pregnancy, and the fact that the pregnancy is unwanted is justification enough. Nobody has a right to force someone else to remain pregnant against their will, and so that's the justification for it. Whether or not an individual is taking the correct course of action, the best course of action, is separate, but MBB says, not fighting words, but using words to start violence, like a leader of group. That's what I hope I addressed your question just a minute ago, MBB, because that's what I was talking about when those people, if I'm inciting violence, there would need to be a demonstration that I'm knowingly doing this, that a reasonable person would understand that their words would likely lead to this. And that is the tie I think that needs to be made. But I'm not a lawyer. I'm just talking from an idealistic standpoint. I'm trying not to miss the tags. There's also speech that incites and leads to violence. Yes. It's a lot to address, and there's a bunch of people here. The right for an abortion. The right for an abortion. So when it comes to liberties, when it comes to freedoms, there's only two models. Either you have every freedom and then you begin to limit them for good reasons, or you have no freedoms and you then grant them. The problem with the second model is that you don't have you don't even begin with the right to grant yourself rights. And you would be spending all of your time granting rights. Do I have the right to wear this shirt with this pair of pants? Do I have a right to wear that shirt with this pair of pants? Instead, the saner and best process is to say everyone has all rights and freedoms, and that we begin limiting those rights and freedoms when my rights and freedoms come in conflict with others. My right to swing my arm ends at your nose, that old adage. And so everyone should have the right to not remain pregnant if they so choose. And in order to violate that right, you would need to come up with a compelling action, a compelling justification. No one has come up with a justification compelling for me to justify forcing someone to remain pregnant. Even at a minimum, you have, in the best case scenario, you have the rights of two individuals conflicting, and you are granting special rights to a fetus, rights that that fetus wouldn't normally have. Any insight to solve this massive right-left divide in our country? No. I'm here because I'm on the edge of hopeless, and I wanted to do it on YouTube today as opposed to Twitch or anything else, not just because I would get more people, but because, and I'm going to scroll, I'm going to get back to chat. I'm going to do this quick sidetrack. The algorithm is feeding you stuff, which means the algorithm is feeding me stuff. And if it only feeds you stuff from people you agree with, that's how you end up getting, further entrenched on one side. But the problem is, I'm on the left. I'm way on the left. But I also understand and see what the right is doing and saying, because part of being who I am, which is why I've got Ground News up over here, and Ground News isn't perfect, but it's a start, is finding out what's actually going on. And the truth is available there, but it requires homework and it requires me being entrenched. The thing is, the algorithms are also feeding me the reactions to stuff and giving me a perspective on what people out there think. And there's this concept of being terminally online. Yes, I know the irony. I'm here right now, technically online, but this is not a forum where I normally have discussions right here on my personal YouTube channel. And huge thank you to everybody for showing up. I do this in other venues. And so I'm hoping that the algorithm sends people here who may not agree with me or who may have a take. And so far, the only people who showed up who may not agree with me or have a different take are some transphobes who are anonymous and trolling. I want to know, granted, we're not going to do an abortion debate, but if there's somebody there that has a disagreement about how and why we should, I've done abortion debates. I've done tons of debates, and I debate real people that I disagree with, many of whom are experts in a number of areas. I would say the best debate opponents that I've had over the years are people like Blake Junta and John Ferrer. John even corrected me on a fallacy I committed during a debate, which I then acknowledged, thanked him for, and keep referencing. It's been 15 probably years since that happened. Because that's what's supposed to happen. So I'm actively trying to make sure that not only am I not getting one side of the story with regard to the information, but I also don't want the response to the story to be skewed. And so while it's fun for me to watch Jordan Klepper or somebody go out and show how absolutely mind-numbingly stupid MAGA supporters are, you can find people on the left that are similarly mind-numbingly stupid. But when you have the vice president declaring that the people on the left are lunatics, the most lunatics, when that's not a technical term for anything, that's called propaganda. That's what Charlie Kirk was doing. It's propaganda. It's applause lines. It's Hello Cleveland. How many trans shootings were there? Too many. Yay! How many mass shootings were there? Do you want to count gang violence or not? Yay! That's not someone who's engaged in a public exchange of ideas in any sort of honest fashion. He said things that were racist, homophobic, transphobic, Islamophobic. It's wild that I'm sitting here as a godless heathen atheist on the left that fucking despises Islam and hates Islamophobia. I fucking despise the Catholic Church, but I recognize that despite them being a criminal organization, they are also generally on the right side with a number of things related to education, including a good chunk of their science education. As a person who advocates for free speech and freedom of religion, I'm not trying to take away anybody's right to say or express their religion or anything else. And yet the same can't be said in reverse. And so when somebody like Joel comes in suggesting that in the West, it's the left that's the problem, not only do I respectfully disagree, but the data show that you are incorrect. Extremists on the left do exist. They are a problem. Violence is a problem and inexcusable right now across the board. Both sides are bad. Yes, they are. Both sides are bad. Doesn't mean they're equally bad. That doesn't mean they're equally bad in the same ways. Well, they're all owned by the same people. Yes. A good chunk of them are in fact owned in the colloquial sense of the word by much of the same people. But you know who those people are? It ain't the trans folks. The trans folks don't own your politicians. Trans people aren't claiming to be cis. Trans people aren't doing anything except trying to hang on to their rights and be left alone. They'd rather none of us were fucking talking about them most of the time. What are the left in favor of? Science, education, healthcare. Tell me again how that's the problem. As we have RFK Jr. anti-vax, shutting stuff down, a resurgence of measles, anti-science, flat earthers, anti-vaccine. It is a parade of ignorance. The people who couldn't figure out why they needed to pay attention in school are now out there doing their own research and telling all the experts how wrong they are. You guys should be fucking embarrassed. We're not going to believe you, science. You lied to us. No. Science, the findings of science, aren't always going to be correct or ideal, because that's not what science is. Science isn't about certainty or confirmation. It's about knowledge and understanding. And so science is constantly reviewing itself. People who genuinely give a crap about the truth and not being deceived, to do its best to make sure that we're presenting a model of the world that is as accurate as it can be. And when, science has shown religious claims to be wrong over and over again. You know what's never happened? No religious claim has ever proven a scientific thing wrong. And it can't. Because even if a claim happened to exist in a religion, the way to know whether or not it's true is science. Science. Oh, Matt's advocating for scientism. You know, if that's the hill you want to die on, yeah, okay, I'm advocating for scientism or some form of scientism. And you know what? I stand by the fact that some form of scientism is better than any form of religion. And that the compassion that exists in humanists and non-humanists that wants a better world, the better world that we want is one where people are free, where people are healthy, where people are reasonably well informed and encouraged to be competent in their decision making, where who that person has sex with is nobody else's business, where the people who are so terrified that they might be closeted gay or closeted left or closeted whatever, don't sit there bullying people to the point where a retaliation looks like an escalation. Here's my favorite example recently, because fuck the atheist community of Austin and the people running that organization. They continue to post old videos that I did from the atheist experience. Makes perfect sense. I didn't ask them to take anything down. They can post it. But they keep reposting it as throwbacks because the content that I produced pays their bills and pays the lawyers that keep me from getting access to the 18 years of email that Vern locked me out of. When I say something negative about the atheist community of Austin, people there try to claim that Matt's escalating things. No, I'm sorry. Matt quit your organization several years ago because the leader of that organization lied to me, refused to engage with me even though he said he would, and they are now paying their employers and their lawyers based on content I produced. Nothing I can do about it. That's fine. But weekly, I get people saying, hey, I saw a clip from you on AXP. Yeah, that's old. No, it was just posted. And it's true. They're reposting old clips and they're paying paying their lawyers and employees. And, when I object, somebody at the ACA went to Arden and said, we'd like to find a way to resolve this, but Matt just keeps escalating. Fuck you. There's no escalation. I go months, maybe once a year or twice a year, I'll mention it only because that's the point at which I'm fed up. What they're doing with me in this is the same thing the right's been doing. You sissy, you pansy, you T-slur, F-slur, R-slur, whatever, blah, 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 you weak little, tree hugging, you're not a real man, you're not a real woman, you're awful, you're deluded, you're mentally ill, you're and then when somebody says, shut the fuck up, wow, why are you getting so heated? They're like the little kid in the back seat that's going, stop touching me, stop touching me, stop touching me. I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you. And then when somebody finally has enough, look how violent they are. My word, my word, my word. Please, let me clutch my pearls more. All right, let me get back to chat because I'm way behind now. Does your neuropathy also feel like goblins laying siege to you with Greek fire and occasional spear phalanxes? No, it feels like a numb tingling from basically the edge of my hand out to about the middle of this finger, and then it starts feeling more normal on the middle of this finger. So it's basically this part here on both limbs and extremities that is neuropathy, and that makes it really difficult to do the magic stuff that I don't do as much close-up magic as I used to because my hands don't always cooperate, and it makes it difficult to do a lot of the guitar and ukulele stuff that I did before. All right, I'm mainly just going to look at super chats and tags right now. So how might I contact you in the line for conversation, feedback, partnership, opportunities? There should be, you can email me at sans.deity@gmail.com, but if you're wanting to reach out to the line, there's email addresses associated and listed on all of the line videos, and reach out to those. It's also good to participate in the chat and on maybe the line Discord. I don't do that, but to kind of get involved with the community. All right. I like seeing my words. Oh shit. It jumped. I got so far behind it jumped ahead. Let me scroll back and try to catch up. I think I have overrun the buffer. I'm a bot driven by ChatGPT Model 5. I don't know how I would prove you're not. Do you think Twitch is going bankrupt? I have no idea, Ryan, but why would you even think that I would have any thoughts or notion about Twitch going bankrupt? Is it because you're a ChatGPT 5 bot? Do you think there's a likelihood of you discovering you are wrong about the right-left violence? And apparently Israel, the same way you discovered you were wrong about religion, asking without animosity. All of the available current data evaluating right-left violence supports my position. When new and better data comes along, my position will change in accordance with that. This is what it means to be a skeptic. That your beliefs are consistent with the available evidence. My beliefs are and continue to be available with consistent evidence. And when it comes to Israel, the United Nations and others, humanitarian efforts and things like that, have determined that they are committing a genocide. I stayed away from that for a long time because I didn't care about what the technical definition of a genocide, and I don't know why we'd have to be arguing technicalities. But while I would agree that Israel has a right to defend itself, I think it has overstepped that. I'm happy to be shown evidence that I'm wrong ever. But Joel, what you keep doing is coming in saying I'm wrong and tap dancing about stuff. You should put together some evidence, because I'm the guy that is constantly reading and watching stuff from all sides, not both sides, all sides, and seeking independent, as an independent, unbiased source as possible. While I am on the left, I'm not looking to the left. As a matter of fact, I spend most of my time arguing with dipshits on the left who are conspiracy theorists, who leap to conclusions, who aren't actually following the evidence. But, well, Ryan, I need you to convince me you're not a ChatGPT-5 bot. Maybe you will by the time I get caught up. You're ex-theist, right? Yes. I don't remember the denomination. I was primarily Southern Baptist, although I did attend some Pentecostal services as well, and had a lot of Catholics in the family. As somebody who's been on both sides of things, why is there so much hatred that comes from religious people? It's very difficult to speculate, but religions are divisive. They create and amplify an us versus them mentality. And when you convince people, for example, within Christianity, that they're being persecuted because they're being good Christians and not being called out because they're being a prick, it just reinforces the idea. And so if you think the devil is coming at you because you're doing God's work, and you really want to do God's work because you have been indoctrinated and fear-mongered into being terrified of a hell. Literally, one of the comments on my videos this morning was that I'm playing a dangerous game, and I'm pretty confident about prayer not working, and the consequences are dire. And I'm like, that's just a threat. Obviously, not all religious people are like this. Yes, there are tons and tons and tons and tons of great, wonderful, sweet, intelligent, rational, religious people. But people aren't their religion. They aren't their book. They aren't the organizations. When I say the Catholic Church is a criminal organization, I'm not saying that every Catholic is a criminal. I'm saying that any of them that support the church are supporting the criminal organization, but how much they know and understand that is subject to a lot of discussion. If I thought religious people were stupid, do you think I'd have spent 20 years actively engaging with them to try to get them to recognize and succeeding? Thousands upon thousands of people have found their way out of religion because of what myself and my coworkers have done. I wasn't stupid when I was religious. I was a fundamentalist Christian for the bulk of my life. I think we're approaching maybe halvesies now. I was around 30 or so, and I'm not quite 60, so we're not quite to half. But we can probably ignore the first few years because I didn't get saved and walk down the aisle till I was 5. But I wasn't stupid. I wasn't unintelligent. I didn't have a low IQ. And I don't think that of other people. What I think is that, like others, we are all flawed thinkers. And it's very easy to slip down an indoctrinated hole out of fear and ignorance and confusion. And because this world's busy and chaotic, there's a lot to do. It's difficult to keep up with things. And the easy answers are convenient. Oh, it's wrong because God said so? Whew, now I don't have to spend any time worrying about whether or not it's wrong. And we do that for all kinds of things, including things like abortion. When the Bible does not actually have anything to say in opposition to abortion. Weird. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And that suggests only that you existed somewhere prior to being formed in the womb. That says nothing at all about abortion. As a matter of fact, the biblical prescription for testing for infidelity leads to an abortion. But that one is okay because that's God deciding whether or not they cheated and whether or not the baby deserves to die. And God is above the law and can kill who he chooses because, he's taken them to a better place. I think religions poison our minds and make us think that even if they're true, this is the only life that I know I'm going to get. I'm in it right now. If there's an afterlife, okay, I'll deal with that when it comes around. It's a bonus. It's a surprise. But any God that would send me to a terrible afterlife for eternity, despite my genuine thoughts on the world and what is right and kind, what is justified, what counts as equality, who matters more, despite all of my thoughts on those things, if there's a God that's going to send me to hell, he's an immoral fucking monster, and I wouldn't want anything to do with him. I am morally superior to that God, just like I'm morally superior to his sycophantic followers, whether he exists or not. And, Matt just said he's morally superior. Yeah, and smarter. Anything else you want me to acknowledge? Years ago, people would call and be like, oh, you're fat and you're bald. And I'm like, tell me something I don't know. Now I'm less fat. But the fact of the matter is, my moral positions are superior to some people's, not everybody's. I am smarter than some people, not everybody. Sorry that the truth is so difficult for some, but anyway. All right. I'm still just looking at supers and tags for me and trying to catch up. What do you think of community building as a means to, I love it. We've been trying to build communities, but it hasn't worked. And it's because in part, religious organizations have an unfair advantage with their de facto tax-free status and the built-in community. You go to a new church or move to a new town, there's a church there for you already. Matter of fact, there's 100 churches there for you. It's just about you picking which one best matches what you already believe rather than learning something new. As an obsessive learner, I don't sit here and keep going back to the same stuff over and over. You know who I don't listen to? I don't listen to the content of, well, that's not true. I do not regularly listen to atheist content. I do not regularly listen to atheist debaters content. I listen to highlights and stuff when I interact with them. I don't need to go watch a video from somebody that I agree with because I already know roughly where they are. I spend my time engaged with the opposition, both reading and interacting. I've done it for all these years. And I'll continue to until I just can't. $10 for the Atheist Mechanic. Thank you so much. And yes, I did add you. Funnily enough, I don't think MAGA needs help showing just how stupid they are or can be. They do enough on their own most of the time. Yeah. By the way, if I ever get caught up and anybody wants to ask questions about or see some of the snakes, I am happy to do that. I can't bring up the newest babies. They're still down in the incubator, but I can show you some that are a couple weeks old and then some older ones and everything else. Why would you say that about your community? Ryan Caden, are you talking about when I mentioned the atheist community of Austin? That is a specific organization that I was the 3-time president of. Not just the atheist community. But even if I said it about the atheist community, it's because I value the truth. And if the atheist community were corrupt pieces of shit, I would call it out. Weird. Do you think we'll have free and fair midterms in 2026 or 2028? I'm still optimistic about the 2026 elections, less optimistic than I was, but I don't have enough information to show that anything that we've crossed that line to free and fair elections no longer happen here. I think it's a likelihood. I think it's clearly some of their goal. There's the adage that every accusation is an admission. But I don't know enough yet about the state of elections for 2026 or potentially 2028 to make any sort of determination about how free and fair they're likely to be. Right now we've got dueling gerrymandering, which I'm more opposed that they're just like, okay, let's dump the electoral college, let's dump the old voting methods, and let's go to a proper democratic thing. Ryan Caden, you're doing nothing to convince me that you're not a Chat GPT-5 bot. There's a video on this fucking channel with nearly 500,000 views describing why I left the atheist experience. I've also talked about it in greater detail on a number of things in a number of places. If you're not a ChatGPT-5 bot, you're stupid. And please stop bringing up irrelevant things and tagging me. Tag me in one more stupid thing, and whether you're a bot or not, you'll be gone. Tag me in real questions. What kind of snake would you recommend for a first snake? Wow, that's cool. So our first snake recommendations tend to be go down the same paths. I think ball python's the number one pet. We raise more of them than any. I think they are genuinely good pets. They are pretty tolerant. The biggest issue with them is that they can go on basically hunger strikes, feeding strikes on occasion. And that can be just concerning for owners. Like I have a snake over in this tub that hasn't eaten in 6 months. It's still healthy. It's still maintaining its weight. I've had one snake go an entire year without eating, but you can tell by the body shape and structure whether or not they're still healthy. Snakes have amazing metabolism. That's what we should be studying. I mean, the Manjaro, the semaglutide things, that actually came from a study of Gila monster venom. And that led to, basically, we're closing on the potential elimination of some varieties of obesity, et cetera. Hi, Ryan. You said, even if I was a bot or not, how could you distinguish? Why would you ask me a question I already answered? And that is that I don't know how. So say goodbye. There we go. But the best first pet snakes fit into, here are my tops. Ball pythons, corn snakes, if you want something that's a little more fun to handle. But even better than that, I think, are African house snakes. They stay smaller. They are incredibly easy to handle. And they are good beginner pets. I mean, they stay small. They stay in a small enclosure. They are fun to handle. They have kind of an arboreal thing where they'll like grip onto your fingers. We're currently breeding some of those as well. They are some of my number one recommended pet snakes. Other good first pet snakes. King snakes, if you're more comfortable with something that's going to move a lot more and that may actually bite you more likely to bite, not out of aggression. Snakes aren't aggressive. They're either defensive or they're food motivated. King snakes are very food motivated, and king snakes are also ophiophagus, which means they will eat other snakes as well. So while we keep and breed a bunch of reptiles, we also keep and breed the mammals, the rats and mice that we feed to them. If I come into a ball python smelling like another snake, I don't have to worry about getting bit. If I come into a ball python smelling like a rodent, I worry about getting bit. But when I'm handling king snakes, or any of the other snakes that we have that will eat snakes, I have to clean up before that, because whether I smell like a snake or a rodent, I can get bit. I almost never get bit. Arden gets bit a handful of times, mainly because she's more likely to be the one feeding the hatchlings, and the hatchlings are often robust. But yeah, ball pythons, African house snakes, corn snakes. Then following that, hognose snakes, if you want something that doesn't handle well at all, but is really cute and fun to watch and stay small, hognose are really good like that. And then if you want something slightly more adventurous, king snakes, basically anything Lamprepeltis. And if you want something slightly bigger than ball pythons, I've fallen in love with boas recently, particularly Sonoran Desert leopard BCIs. I think they're phenomenal, and they're probably my second favorite boa after our Dumerals boas. Both great pets. They look meaner, that kind of sense, and they're not. And then probably it's hard to say my favorites because we have so many. I love my false water cobra, and I love my carpet pythons. those are probably my personal favorites out of the collection. I mean, I've got a mangrove snake that I don't handle a lot because it's feisty, but I mean, it kind of gets down to the snake and you got to do a lot of work with them. My false water cobra is gentle all the time. He is less like I have black-tailed crebos as well. And the female, you can just reach in and grab anytime you want. And the male, you want to grab them out with a hook. And then once you get them out with the hook, they settle down. My false water cobra, apart from being startled, if you just reach down, is as gentle or more gentle than any carpet python or I've had. They're great. So there's my thing. Are there any questions that still trouble you philosophically, like the problem of consciousness? Well, yeah, it's annoying that we don't have an understanding of these, but one of the things is that where some people make their peace with that by pretending that they do have an understanding of it because there's a God out there that understands and maybe he'll explain it to them someday. I make my peace with it by recognizing that as far as I can tell, I'm at least not deficient in my understanding, that we all seem to be unable to resolve these problems. And recognizing that the right answer to a question is often, I don't know, and apparently neither does anybody else. So let's see if we can go find out. And as we're doing a sort of triage on how much resources we're going to apply to different questions, as we do that triage, we need to apply our resources where they're most likely to see returns. If it doesn't seem like we have a path to resolving the hard problem of consciousness and something like Gödel's incompleteness theorem, or the fact that it's a presupposition, the primacy of reason is a presupposition and the uniformity of things is a presupposition. If we don't have likelihood that we could any way to demonstrate we're wrong about it, it's better to put our efforts elsewhere, like stopping gun violence, like releasing the Epstein files, like ending corruption, like improving the voting methods. It's not going to be long before we have to start dealing with real issues of identity related to cloning and stuff. And if we can't solve the much more basic problems of, hey, should we target and malign gay people? Hey, should we allow people to be free and speak in opposition to things? If we can't get those things resolved, we're fucked on the real problems that are coming, like AI, cloning, etc. Why would we spend time? Don't get me wrong, I love philosophy, and I love the thinky parts of it as well, and the problem of hard solipsism, all these things. I like them because I think they're great thought exercises that get me to think differently about other things. And so for me, the benefit of evaluating those things is because it helps train your brain to not be mired on just what's immediate, but to see beyond that, to reach for a horizon of, I can't fix this problem, but what problem could I fix? And that to me is the bigger benefit of that philosophy stuff. The video where you and Tracy took that call from that guy who tried to insinuate that kids who get sexually assaulted by priests deserved it showed me the ugliness inside of religion. To be fair, I think most people recognize that ugliness. Why is Matt so handsome? That is genetics and your bias. Heard about Justin DZ and our amazing Discord working on a nonprofit organization. I thought you were asking me if I've heard of Justin when I just did a fucking show with him and he's on my network. No, I did not hear that you're working on a nonprofit organization, Lilith. See, this is the thing. Read the whole question, because people will phrase things slightly different than you thought. I thought Lilith was asking me if I've heard of Justin, and I was like, we just did a fucking show and we're going to do more of them. He's great. I don't know anything about the nonprofit organization. How'd you get into reptile breeding? I've always loved reptiles. I wanted to breed, but I couldn't because I didn't have the money or the facilities to do so. And then Arden and I got together and we both have an interest. And so we did it. As a matter of fact, the clutch downstairs that just hatched out is from the first snake that Arden bought after we got together. It was a female. It's now old enough that it produced its first clutch. Austin says, I used to be a young earth creationist and now I'm a bioinformaticist who's working on a degree in evolutionary biology. I want to say thanks for that. Other people helped. You were one of the first. Thanks so much. I just found out some info. Is Arden your partner? Yes, for 4 years. 4 years, June 19th, I think. Or around June. June 19th is when we celebrate what would have been our first date. But yeah. And you just found that out. Don't get me wrong, Emmy. What surprises me, and this is great. This is part of what I was talking about. Like the algorithm is insulating you and feeding you stuff. And you don't know how much everybody else is terminally or perpetually online or what they know. And so while I am constantly under attack because Arden and I are together, there are people who didn't know. And that's people who knew who I was who didn't know that, which tells me that some people are tuning out from some things, which is a little bit of a problem, but it's also probably healthy to tune out from some of that feedback loop because the signal to noise ratio is getting very low. Do you think you and Arden will ever come to BajaCon in Sarnia? I was invited to, I think, what was the first BajaCon, but I couldn't make it for a number of reasons. There were some health issues and some passport issues. There's actually somebody I still owe a hangout with that I haven't heard back from that. They haven't invited me back, but also I don't have a passport currently, and Arden can't get a passport right now. So we won't be traveling or leaving the country until that's an option. But I've heard really good things about BajaCon. BajaCon was the one I was going to cancel because one of their sponsors was problematic, and myself and several other people objected, and they fixed it, and good for them. But I've heard, pretty much nothing but good things. I would love to go. No ill will on my side, although I was very difficult to contact by email. I had health problems. I could understand why organizers at BajaCon would not want to invite me. But as it stands right now, I just can't go. What is your biggest issue with Sam Harris, if any? That he tried to blame trans folks for being the target. Sam understands that these people are less than 1% of the population and that the right is using them as a boogeyman, and thinks that the left is stupid to engage on that boogeyman. And in doing so, basically painted the victims as the problem and painted people who are compassionate towards those victims as a problem. That's probably my biggest issue with Sam. Sam and I agree on fuck tons of stuff. I mean, when we were doing that tour, I wish everybody had a chance to meet and know Sam the way I did, both, interacting like at the bar after events or, in conversations backstage and everything else. I'm not saying he's remotely phony. I think we're both pretty much what you see is what you get. And Sam sometimes, in my view, gets more focused on even more pedantically, intellectually abstract than I can be. But not as abstract as like Deepak or Jordan Peterson or whatever else. I mean, Sam's a smart guy and by and large a good guy and overwhelmingly right on most things. My only big issue with him, I mean, minor points of disagreement, but I don't have to agree with everybody on everything. And honestly, I don't think I'd have that much of a problem potentially working with him again if not that he wants to. There's no reason for him to do that. I mean, we were speaking to 3,500 seat venues, and Sam would have been selling out 3,200 of those. When I did shows on my own, the audience ranged from 100 people to maybe 800 people, depending on what I was doing. And so, you're not the same draw. Although Sam was getting paid about 20 times what I was getting paid for those events, and that's fine. He's a big draw. But yeah, when he basically was like blaming the left and the trans folks and or compassion for the trans folks with the last election loss, I thought that was stupid and immoral. But we don't talk. I mean, I think if we probably sat down, I have every confidence that Sam and I would be very, very good at hashing out our points of disagreement, more so than almost anybody I've ever worked with. So, like, people get this weird perception of things. Yes, Dawkins did some events with us, and Dawkins and I largely agreed on the religious stuff, but my thoughts on Dawkins haven't really changed, other than as he got more transphobic, I called him out more. You know, there are people who are good at having conversations with people they disagree with, and people who aren't. And some people say I'm not, because they'll see the show and see me getting heated. But the show is very different from the debate stuff and from engaging on the stages. I'd love to sit down with Sam sometime and talk, and it doesn't even have to be in public. That's not the issue. I'm not looking for any attention. People often ask me if I would have debated Charlie Kirk. There were opportunities for him to do that, which evidently he turned down, like Craig and others, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not going to debate every Yahoo that comes in and asks me to. You couldn't. But I'll tell him to call the show, and if there's something that goes beyond the preliminary, then yeah, we can do more. And that's why you get some return callers, and why you get people that I work with and interact with who we don't agree. Like Jimmy and I have had some amazing arguments, and he's one of my best friends. And we sort out and we know where we disagree and why. And there comes a point where there's such a divide between your views and somebody else's views that there's no more interest in interacting with them. That happened to me with some former friends of mine, one of whom turned out to be a lying, fraudulent piece of shit who just didn't want to work a real job and wanted to be internet famous. And when I found that out, I cut him off. And I'm not going to name him. I'm not going to acknowledge the name. There are people who know. It's fine. Sam's not that. Sam's a genuinely smart guy with great intentions, who I think has some great thoughts and really stuck his foot in it a couple times, both in how he said, irrespective of what he meant. Like when he talked about the race and IQ stuff, there's nothing he said that was that I saw that was like factually wrong. It's when you get into judgments and how you present it. And I did something similar with respect to Charlie Kirk, because when he got shot, I just posted zero sympathy, knowing I was going to do a show that night, not knowing if he was alive or dead, and noting, it was, I suppose I would have to acknowledge that it was mildly clickbaity, even though there was nothing there to click. But my point was, I hate the fact that I don't have sympathy for him. I don't think he deserved it. I don't think it was justified. I think it was awful. I think it was horrible. I think it was murder. I think it was strategically stupid. I think it was vile, and that he didn't deserve it. But it was a commentary not on Charlie Kirk as much as it was commentary on the world that has made it so that even when I, as a humanist, feel like I should be able to muster sympathy for someone, I can't always do that. And while I have sympathy for his kids and the minds that he poisoned, I don't have sympathy for him. And then when he died, not only did I post that clarification, but I pointed out it was silly to potentially have sympathy for him. Anyway, that was a question about Sam. Let me get caught back up with chat. I low-key want to argue with him out. I don't know what topic would be on. See, that's really wild. Since I think I agree with you on everything, but it'd be fun. I can thank you, Emmy. I appreciate that. I'm not at all like that. Not only do I not want to argue with people, there's no person out there that I'd say, ooh, I'd really like to argue with that person. I just don't know the topic. I don't even know, nor do I research my debate opponents for most debates, because I'm so dedicated to the truth and getting the message out that I don't want to poison the well by coming in with an expectation of who they are and what they'll say. And that's how I ended up sitting down next to Big Papa Fascist, or whatever Andrew Wilson's online name is, when it was supposed to be a debate of secular humanism versus biblical morality. And then he said he would concede my entire worldview if I could just explain how a man can get pregnant. And I should have pointed out that a man can get pregnant in a number of different ways, not the least of which is that a trans man can often have a functional uterus and ovaries for a period of time, if not forever, and that allows for a pregnancy. But also that there are medical curiosities. And this all got down to him wanting to make this about trans people. I came in here to do this. I was going to play some EverQuest and do a light stream on Twitch. I moved it to YouTube. We basically shut down EverQuest, which is why it says old gamer, old game, new stream, because this turned into just kind of like a Q&A. And, thank you. Huge thanks to everybody who's donated and supported and asked questions. But it is the very first thing, like the third or fourth comment in this live stream was, free speech died on September 10th, 2025. And I was like, oh, great. Right off the bat, I get the Charlie Kirk fanboys and trolls coming in to help me. To help me address the problem. And so, yeah, I don't, like, people are like, oh, who would you most like to debate? That's a common question I get. And it baffles me because I don't think in terms of who I'm debating. I don't prepare for a person. I prepare for a topic. And that is, I think, where most of my debate opponents fail. Well, actually, part of where most of my debate opponents fail. They also fail on fallacies and unreasonable positions and things like that. But so many of them make it about me. See, whether the debate is, does God exist, or resolved God exists, or is there a secular foundation for morality? It doesn't matter what the debate topic is. I am irrelevant to that question. If my name does not appear in the subject of the debate, I am completely irrelevant. And so every time they make it about me, well, I'll concede a whole debate if Matt can just tell me how a man can get pregnant. Well, I could. It's trivially easy, but that's when I realized that you are dishonest and stupid and there for propaganda and clicks. See, you made it about me. Every time you make it about me, I win. I'm living rent-free in your head. You're demonstrating. You know what's never had to happen? When somebody comes up and... like, for example, if you walk out of a restaurant without paying your check, and I'm standing there, and I say, I think that person just walked out without paying their check. And the owner of the restaurant comes over and shows, hey, here's this. Hey, I've got this is your receipt here. You have paid your check. Here's your receipt. And I say, you can't trust that guy. He's just doing that for show. That makes me delusional. That means instead of addressing the actual issue, I'm just reinforcing my preference that I think that person left without paying their check, ignoring the available evidence and instead making about the person. This is why there's an ad hominem fallacy, which is claiming you're wrong because of who you are or what you are. And then there are ad hominem attacks. Those aren't fallacies. Fallacies exist in arguments. If I say you're stupid, that's not an ad hom fallacy. It is an ad hom attack. I'm addressing your person. I may or may not be right. But if I say you're wrong because you're stupid, that would be an ad hom fallacy. And what my opponents frequently do is try to come up and say, Matt's wrong because he's gay, bi, trans, fat, stupid, bald, atheist, immoral. It doesn't matter. They make it about me and I win. And what's funny is when I say I win, it's not me winning. I'm not personally getting anything out of it. my position is winning, because my position is that there is yet a demonstration, or there has not yet been a demonstration, that belief in a God is reasonable. That a God belief is justified by its truth. That prayer works at a consistent rate. That prayer works at any rate. How do you even show a connection? There's no demonstration of how to even test for the supernatural, let alone consider it a possibility, let alone a probability, let alone the right fucking answer. That's my position. Prove me wrong. You know how you prove me wrong? You prove me wrong not by saying, Matt's standards of evidence are too high, Matt's too skeptical. You prove it by showing that you have a way to identify the supernatural, detect the supernatural, confirm the supernatural, and confirm when and if the supernatural is impacting reality in a detectable way. Because if it's not, then you're claiming to detect the undetectable. That's how I win when you make it about me. And it's not me winning, it's the truth winning. And the truth is that theists haven't made their case, that the bigots haven't made their case. They want to take their personal opinions and fears and prop them up on the shoulder of a fictional God so that they can pretend they're right because they cannot show they are right. All right. Oh, Colassius here and deleting some messages. Cool. Yeah, thanks so much, Colassius. I appreciate it. I don't need to require a mod for this because I'm not doing anything else, but really, Stunks Guy just showed up after streaming for 2 hours, doing a whole show last Wednesday and making a bunch of posts about it saying opinion on Kirk thing. Go rewind or go watch Wednesday's show on the line. I'm sure you have been busy. By the way, I only want to get rid of the bots and the transphobes, homophobes, bigots. Open bigots and bots, get rid of. The whiny little trolls that are, let them tell on themselves. Yes, Throne of David, your words are visible. To me, at least. I don't agree 100% on certain trans community issues, but I would never wish anyone harm or disrespect. Well, George, I find it strange that you don't agree 100%, but I mean, we don't necessarily agree 100% with everything. By the way, hate to say this, there are trans people who are wrong. There are trans people who are wrong about what trans rights should be. There are trans people who are wrong about what trans is. Oh my God, did a cis person just say a trans person is wrong? Yeah, but I got it from my other trans friend, so it's okay. Nobody has the market cornered on reasonableness, correctness, rationality, and no representative, no member of a community has demonstrated a perfect representation of that community. Oh, a woo peddler. Yeah, if it's kind of harmful woo peddling, is it? Echo chamber trash. Hey, Flatline, are you saying I'm echo chamber trash? Why didn't you tag me? You're saying that the guy who for 20 years has consistently done what Charlie Kirk pretended to do, the guy who is consistently seeking out and engaging honestly with all sides of arguments, that I'm echo chamber trash? I just want to make sure I'm clear on that, Flatline. And if I'm echo chamber trash, doesn't that make you part of my echo chamber now? I do understand the impulse to want to debate certain professional debaters. That, yeah, I can see that, Jacka. Yeah. I just am not that, I'm so inundated with it. There are very few times where somebody has said, hey, do you want to debate so-and-so? And I was like, ooh, yeah. And normally it's because I've had conversations with them in the past. Like, it's been a while since Blake Junta and I debated. I don't think Blake's as involved as he was. Matter of fact, I was supposed to debate Blake when they substituted Andrew Wilson in. Blake has a lot of really homophobic views that have been problematic. And that could happen, but it's really soured me on him. I think John Ferrer is great. I would sit down with John again, but honestly, and I suspect John might agree, I don't know if there's anything new to address on that front. It's not like we have new arguments or evidence for the existence of God. It's not like, I mean, if John came up with a new novel presentation or he found another flaw when John's found a flaw in my reasoning, I acknowledged it. If he finds others, I will acknowledge those as well. Even Than Christopoulos, who I had a great debate with and thought we were probably going to be like genuinely friends or friendly. We were talking about doing content together. But Than has now gotten swept up into the machine. I don't hear anything or see anything, and it's pushing the same inspiring philosophy crap. It's this mix of good stuff. They're focused on their anti-Islam stuff, and they've got apostate prophet is now a Christian, and woo, cool. Not like any of them have a good reason for anything, and they don't engage with it anymore because I think some of them come to understand the skeptical position and sound epistemology does not support their position. So they're appealing to non-skepticism and flawed epistemology, claiming that those epistemologies are better. And they know I'm not going to budge. So why would they dare go up against somebody who's going to say that's not sound epistemology? And what's funny is if the two of us went to a university to sit down with epistemologists to compare, I'm pretty confident which one of us would come out ahead. And I think some of them know it too. Matt Delaney's argument is wrong because he's so handsome. I don't even have my upper teeth in, and I'm too handsome for you guys. I haven't shaved. I took out my upper denture, and I'm so handsome. I'm a heartthrob. I'm just glad my heart is throbbing. By the way, I'm probably going to have to end this stream pretty soon. I have some stuff to do, but also I spent about 18 years. I spent about 18 hours in the hospital because if you go back and watch Sunday's episode, I was having some sort of ischemic reaction. I thought I was high and couldn't explain why. Like I had eaten a gummy from a new company the night before and went to sleep, woke up, everything was fine. Then I started feeling high again. And I was like, oh, I wonder if there's like a piece of that gummy that got like a delayed release and I got high. And so I just kind of went with that. And then it became clear a little ways down the road that no, something serious was going on. And I have a very handsome brain. There's a hole in it. There's not a hole in it, but that's what some people were saying. There was an error on the CT image, so they brought me in for an emergency MRI, which was clear. We don't know what caused the actual reaction. Sorry, I'm getting messages from Arden about something. Let me close this poll. I navigated away from this and now I can't see it. And so they put me in for observation. The episode passed. They don't know why. It may have been related to energy drinks. And now that I've started drinking this energy drink, I'm feeling a little bit fuzzy right now. But it's okay because, I mean, I can beat the trolls with half my brain tied behind my back, at least, maybe more. Yeah, we don't know what happened. We're going to keep monitoring it. I'm going to go see a neurologist because much like I ended up having triple bypass and we found out that I had had a number of heart attacks that I was unaware of. part of my diabetic neuropathy means I react differently to pain. And there's some numbness. And so we think the diabetic neuropathy masked some of my cardiovascular pain. And that led to heart attacks, that led to compounded problems, including like microvascular condition that potentially years ago, along with this, I probably had several micro strokes, things that were described to me yesterday as you wouldn't know they were happening while they're happening. They don't produce any symptoms. They're just like nerves type dying at different points, and they don't have any significant impact. But they wanted to look into it. Your girlfriend is too pretty. Your body couldn't handle it. That's true. So there's a period of time on Sunday night where I thought I might be dying. And I didn't tell anybody. I knew I wanted to reach out to, I'm going to do this and wrap up the stream. So I missed a $100 super chat. How the fuck did that happen? Ron Johnson, thanks. Thank you so much. That's huge. I greatly appreciate your kindness, and I'm sorry that it took so long to recognize it. And my apologies to anybody else who got a super chat in that I missed. Very, very grateful. I will probably do more of these live hangouts. They're both a good test for my mental acuity, but also it gets me out from underneath the regular algorithm, because this channel is more open to, has fewer blocks and stuff on it than some of the other ones do. Anyway, so let me wrap up with this. I left the show a little after 3 because I could no longer focus and I couldn't remember what had happened 20 seconds before. And I knew before the show started I shouldn't be on the show. We desperately looked for a substitute. There was nobody who was available. We thought about having Seth do the show on his own, and he was perfectly happy to do that, but I wanted to give it a try. And I did the show, part of the show. And then when I left, I went, I grabbed a pillow, and I went and laid down in Arden's office because I didn't want to interrupt her producing the show to go to the hospital. And I laid there and had her keep an eye on me while Seth was finishing the show. And there were moments where I thought I might be dying because, when things aren't making sense and you're not remembering things and, the panic can stir up. And we headed off to the emergency room. And when we got there, they were doing some mental acuity tests, and I figured that out, but it doesn't mean I performed any better on them than I did. It's nice to know that 74% of you, by the way, I feel like I wasn't ranting and raving all over the place, and 26% of you are clearly more delusional than I am. So thanks. Anyway, there were thoughts about who to contact, who to tell what was going on. And the obvious, Arden and I obviously knew, and Seth knew. I think the first 2 people that we contacted were my brother and Jimmy Snow. Those are the people that were closest to and most need to know what was going on. And then I reached out on my own to a handful of people, people I valued and were important to me, and that I wanted them to, like, if I died, it was kind of I want these people to know not only that they were in my thoughts, but that they were one of the last ones to speak to me, so that if people start lying about what was said or what happened or what the facts were about me, there would be people who I trust who at least knew what was going on. And I wasn't going to say who I reached out to, but it surprised me. I reached out to some people that I'm close with, and some people I'm not especially close with. You know, like I reached out to Andrew Seidel, not because we're closer friends than others, but because I genuinely respect and admire Andrew and his measuredness and his reasonableness. And I wanted to say, look, I'm on my way to the hospital. I've been down this road before, but this one's a little different. I didn't say all of this. I'm thinking this. And I just wanted you to know, if this goes badly, thank you more than you can know. And if this goes well, thank you more than you can know, because we ought to be thankful. We don't spend enough time being thankful to people. I know I'm not going to just sit here and get sappy about the time I almost died when I really didn't. And I reached out to a couple people in Facebook messages that I'm kind of close with, but not super close. And I think a lot of it just had to do with how I was feeling at the moment, and people who I knew at the time were feeling similarly about the world and dealing with similar things. Because if this is primarily high blood pressure, hypertension, stress induced, which may be the case, then it's good to let other people know, you know, you're going to be all right. Now, I could have another episode right now. I could die tonight. If you die tonight, do you know where you would spend eternity? No. And neither does anybody else, but all the best evidence about who I am and what I am suggests that I end when I die, that there is no spending of eternity. If there's an afterlife, great. I hope it doesn't suck. I hope it has a trend that is proven to be better than the current trend in the one and only life I know I'm going to get. If you're one of the people I didn't reach out to, don't think it's because you weren't important. There are people I genuinely love who I respond to immediately every time they call me. But there were people I wanted to reach out to for certain reasons. And then when I got out of the hospital, I saw clips of the Vice President of the United States saying that it's not a both sides problem. The left is where the lunatics are. The left is where the violence is. There's no data to support that. There's no definition of lunatic that is of any value or use to anybody. Might as well have just said crazies. The left are the crazies. They're the violent ones. Yeah. Yeah, because, you know, it's the left that picks up tiki torches and shouts, Jews will not replace us. It's the left that buy their Soldier of Fortune magazines and stockpile guns for the end of the world. It's the tree-hugging, pro-vaccine, pro-science, pro-healthcare, pro-queer people who would just obnoxiously, constantly talking about love and goodness and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, they're the ones that are violent. Don't get me wrong, people can be radicalized on both sides. But the perfect is the enemy of the good. The truth doesn't lie exactly in the middle. And the fact that you can divide a population into two groups, both of which are capable of and have lied, both of which are capable of and have been and are corrupt, doesn't mean they're lying equally, doesn't mean they're equally as corrupt, and doesn't mean the violence is corrupt. Trust the data. Don't trust me. Don't trust the vice president or the president. I'm confused at how these people can openly lie to everyone. There are no repercussions, seemingly. And is it because most people aren't paying attention, and so they don't know how bad it is, or they know how bad it is, so they're not paying attention? Or are we all just that callous? Is it as divided as it seems? It may be. Or not. But this pretending that a tiny portion of the population is the problem. When our current government is being run by the stupidest, least qualified, least scientific, least respectful of due process, precedent, and the rule of law, least competent, machoistic cronies that suck up to dear leader like he's Kim Jong-un. He's stopped 7 wars. He doesn't know the difference between Albania and Algeria and wherever else. But the confusion isn't what bothers me. The lies bother me. And the fact that they're using those lies to take away your rights. They're going to start, I'm not going to say they're going to. They've publicly announced that they want to start looking into, criminalize left hate speech. I thought there were fine people on both sides, Mr. President. All those January 6th insurrectionists that you pardoned. The Proud Boy, Tiki Torch marchers, Jews will not replace us. White Lives Matter. Celebrating. You couldn't be bothered when Melissa Hortman was killed to call the governor or talk about it, but you're the one that announced that Charlie Kirk had been shot, and you're the one that announced that he'd been killed, and you're the one that announced, well, actually you didn't announce he'd been shot. You were the one that announced that he died, and you're the one that announced that we had a suspect in custody. And then the media went, ooh, it's all the left's fault. The Dems are going to own this. It's civil war. It's time to climb down. I posted screenshots of them. Then they walked it back when they thought that this kid was a 22-year-old Mormon son of a preacher and sheriff. And then when it turns out he's not necessarily a preacher or sheriff, but he's still a Mormon kid. And, he had recently been radicalized by the left because he had a trans romantic partner. And there's documentation which we haven't produced. Why is anybody, including the director of the FBI, the director of the FBI doesn't need to retweet speculation and vagaries. The director of the FBI needs to hold on to information until such time as there is a declarative, and then make a statement on behalf of the official position of the government, the FBI. But that's not the world we live in. The world we live in is where incompetent podcasters now run the government. The world we live in is where people are hiding the Epstein files and pretending it's the other side. Why didn't the Democrats do it? Why didn't the Democrats do it? Why didn't the Democrats do it? Every fucking Democrat voted to release that. You guys are so awful, you had me agreeing with Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's awful on a number of issues, but at least this one, she got it right. It's all a hoax. Oh, no, I'm not the victims. It's just a hoax about the other stuff. Well, no, it's not the hoax about the other stuff. It's just this. I don't draw pictures. I didn't do this. That doesn't sound like my writing. Somebody forged his signature. Somebody's got a DeLorean and went back in time and faked that. That's what you sound like. When Trump said he could grab him by the pussy, you're who he was talking about. See you guys later.